everyone, what is up? It's Jolene from sunshinediary.com. I'm a self-employed millennial and I love to share tips on practical living, frugal living. Basically, if you're trying to be a girl boss, I'm here for it. I'm here for you and we can do this together. I recently did a video on finances, and in that video I explained one of the reasons why you might find yourself living paycheck to paycheck and how you could avoid it. And I also mentioned sinking funds, and I did get one request to do a video on sinking funds, so that's what I'm doing for you today. Sinking funds are a great way to avoid living paycheck to paycheck and a great way to avoid getting yourself into debt when certain expenses come up. So I'm going to go straight into this video and explain to you what sinking funds are, how to set up your sinking funds, which sinking funds you should have, and how best to manage them. If you're interested in that, I really hope you enjoyed this video. And if you do find yourself interested and finding this video useful, please do think about subscribing. I would love to have you along on my journey. So managing your finances and staying out of debt is not as simple as just saving money or making sure that you put some money aside from every paycheck or anything like that. It really should be a little bit more intentional than that. And I highly recommend sinking funds. A sinking fund is simply a specialized fund or account in which you save for an infrequent expense gradually over a long period of time. So what is an infrequent expense? What are the things that you might be saving for using a sinking fund? These are things like Christmas. Christmas happens once a year. If you celebrate Christmas, you know that it can be a very expensive time of year. But it's not a surprise. You know that it's going to happen. It's not in your typical monthly budget because it's not something that you have to spend on every month. And that means that a lot of people find that when Christmas comes around, they are going into debt in order to cover all of the meals and the presents and the decorations and the travel to visit friends and family. This is one of the things that you can avoid by having a sinking fund. So how that would work is that, let's say from January, or maybe not January, because maybe in January you're still recovering from Christmas. So let's say from February until November, you put aside a certain amount of each paycheck for Christmas. And it doesn't have to be something big because you have 10 to 11 months to save for this. So in your Christmas sinking fund, you'll just put, I don't know, 20 or maybe 50 pounds or $50, depending. Forget, I will change currencies all the time, by the way, because I have lived in so many places over the last 5 years. But whatever is your currency, you might put 10, 15, 20, 100 each month or out of each paycheck into the Christmas sinking fund. So by the time the 10th month rolls around, if you've been saving, I don't know, 50 each month, 50, let's say dollars each month into that sinking fund, by let's say November, you'll have $500 to spend on presents and decorations and whatnot. That may be a lot of money to some people, it may be a little money to some people, it depends on your situation, and of course depending on your situation, you'll make a decision as to how much you can put into that sinking fund. A little bit is better than nothing, because even if you still end up putting some things on your credit card, which you should really try not to if you can avoid it, but even if you still end up doing that, you will have less to put on your credit card because you have a fund saved up for what you knew was a predictable but infrequent expense. So how do you start a sinking fund? When you're starting your sinking fund, you have to ask yourself certain questions, and it's going to really depend on your individual situation. Not everyone has the same ability to create multiple accounts. Depending on the country you live in, that might be very difficult. Not everyone has the same sinking funds or the same things that they will save for. Maybe you don't celebrate Christmas, but maybe you have a car and you know that you're going to need spare tires at some point in time, and so you're saving for that instead. Maybe you have a baby on the way and you have a baby sinking fund for medical expenses and things like that. So it really depends on your individual situation. But the first thing that you have to think about is, what are the things that I will have to pay for, let's say in the next year or two, that are infrequent, but I know they're coming up. And this can be my husband's birthday, this can be anything. It really depends on your life. So first of all, try and identify some of the things that you know will come up and really give that a lot of thought, because they're things that you may not even consider, like your laptop. Is it 5 years old? Will you need to get a new one next year? Maybe it's working fine right now, but it might be wise to start putting aside $10 every month or something, because at some point it will either need to be repaired or replaced. So that's the first thing you think about. What does my life look like, and what are the infrequent expenses that I can predict? Just have a look around you. You might find things in your immediate environment that you know will cost you money eventually. Some kind of plumbing problem or something. So the first thing you do is identify the things that you are likely to need to pay for in the next year or two. The next thing that you do is you identify the cost of those things, because you may decide, if Christmas is one of your sinking funds and you have a very small, close-knit family of 4 people, you're happy to spend $100 on a present for each person and maybe $100 on whatever you will cook. You only need $500 total for your Christmas expenses. Knowing how much you think something will cost or how much you intend to spend is the next step. You know where the money is going to go, and you know how much money is going to have to go there, and that will help you decide the next step, which is how much should you put in every month. The amount that you put in every month doesn't only depend on how much something costs and on the fact that it's on your list of potential future expenses, but you also have to establish a priority. You have to have a hierarchy of expenses so that you can decide, this is worth me sacrificing 50 euros every month or something, or this is not worth me making that kind of sacrifice. There's some things that I save for in what's called, well, what I refer to as the windfall method. I don't know if anybody else calls it this. What I mean is, I'm not saving for it on a regular basis because it's not so high on my list of priorities. It's just something that I would like to do. I would like to go on holiday somewhere when this whole crazy situation ends, of course. But I don't feel like it's important enough for me to save 100 euros every month for a holiday. I'm already saving a certain amount every month for my regular trips back to Trinidad, and that's kind of a holiday for me. So my trip to, I don't know, Aruba or Greece or something, I'm not going to save as much for it because it's not as urgent for me. What I'll do is I'll save via what I call the windfall method. That means that if I get an unexpected amount of money, let's say this is not relevant to my life because I don't work overtime, but just to simplify, let's say I worked overtime this month and I got overtime pay. Let's say I got a tax rebate. That also never happens in my life. Or let's say that someone gave me a gift of money. So this is unexpected money that doesn't fit into my budget anywhere. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll say, if I ever have a windfall, I'll put it into the vacation fund. I'm not saving a regular amount every month for that, but the fund does exist and it will grow slowly because every once in a while I'll have a windfall. So that's something that is also an interesting and useful way to have a sinking fund when your budget is limited. There are only so many things that you can take out of your monthly budget and save for. And I should point out that you should still have savings that are not allocated to anything. Savings that are not for your braces and your dental expenses or for your home repairs or for your spare tires, but just savings. You should just have that on top of your sinking funds. Let me make that clear. To wrap up this video, I just want to give you my best tips on managing your sinking funds. The first thing that I would recommend, and I sort of alluded to this earlier, is that I would recommend that you try to put this in an account that is not the account that you regularly use for other expenses. Not just a savings account where you can easily transfer it into your current account either. If you can put this in a special account, an account where maybe, what I've done in the past is I've actually put sinking funds into accounts where I would be charged fees if I withdrew the money from that account in a certain period of time. Or you might be able to put it in a solely virtual account where you have a separate card so you can't just easily access it. I do that. There are many sort of online and virtual banks these days. There are more and more of them. Monies and Revolut are two that I can think of off the top of my head. So they're apps. They're completely virtual banks, but there are features within those apps that allow you to create separate sub-accounts and manage your money that way. So that's a great way to have a sinking fund, not in your regular bank, but maybe in a virtual bank or just in a separate bank, a traditional bank, but a separate one from the one that you typically use. So it's not easy for you to decide, okay, I'm just going to spend this money, although I had allocated it to something else. Another strong recommendation that I have is to name your accounts if you can. If your banking software or your banking app or your bank in general allows you to give a name to your accounts, absolutely do that. I had an account that I titled New House Fund because I want to purchase property. And it's much harder to withdraw that money and spend it on something frivolous if your account says Christmas or if your account says holiday in Greece. Because you'll realize when you try to transfer that money into your normal account that all of a sudden you're that much further away from your holiday in Greece. So that's a huge tip that I have. It's super helpful for me. I almost forgot to go into detail about the types of sinking funds that I recommend you have. I think I went through it so much throughout the course of this video that I almost forgot that I wanted to give you a condensed version of my list of sinking funds that I recommend that are relevant to most people. So I have written down the list here and I'll just go through it really quickly to let you know which are the sinking funds that you might want to create, but obviously, like I said, you'll have to adapt this to your own life and your own personal situation. So one of the sinking funds that I recommend is a medical expenses sinking fund. Even if you have insurance, you may find yourself in a situation like in an accident or in a medical emergency that your insurance doesn't fully cover. Depending on the country where you live, just having a baby can lead to a lot of debt. So I would absolutely recommend a medical expenses sinking fund. I have a dental sinking fund. I think it's really useful. If you wear glasses, you might want to have an ophthalmological, I hope I pronounced that right, sinking fund. I mentioned Christmas, I mentioned saving for a home down payment, I think. And if it's not Christmas, it will be some other holiday or some other special event. So you might have children and you may need to save for all of their birthdays because they may be at that age where you're kind of throwing birthday parties for them and inviting their friends over. That's something super useful that you need to think about and you don't want to go into debt over. So it's useful to plan in advance how much you want to spend on that and start slowly saving for it because you know every year this child is going to have a birthday. This is not a surprise. Car repairs and maintenance is something else that I mentioned, but another one is actually pet care. Your pet may need to see a vet on a regular basis. Your pet may need special medication. Your pet may fall ill, or maybe it's just a pet that's difficult to travel with and you want to have a fund so that when you go on holiday you can pay for a pet sitter. That's the kind of thing that I also recommend. You might not think about it immediately, but it's a super useful sinking fund to have. Last but not least, I sort of mentioned this before because I talked about having to replace maybe your laptop or your phone or something, but there are all sorts of appliances that are crucial to our daily lives. Your dishwasher, your washing machine, your vacuum cleaner. There's so many things that you probably use on a regular basis, so much so that your life would be immeasurably more difficult if you didn't have that thing. It's something to think about when you think and assess what sinking funds you might need. Like my last video, I really was trying to make sure that this was quick and easy to remember. I hope it was helpful to you all. I do try very hard to fill my channel with interesting and useful content for you. So if you've noticed, if you're liking what I'm putting out, please do click that thumbs up button, hit like. It will feel so good and it's so useful for my channel and helps me to grow. Consider subscribing. I would love to get to know you, chat with you in the comments. If you have ideas as well for other sinking funds that I haven't mentioned throughout the course of this video, please do leave them in the comments below. I'm very interested. I can't believe that I think I was about 30 before I ever heard the term sinking fund. This is really something that I think it's useful to share as knowledge, especially to young women, because we're typically not as financially literate as young men, and I think that's ridiculous, and I hope that this video has gone some way to changing that. Anyway, let me stop rambling. I am so glad that you watched this video. Thank you for staying until the end, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!